All right. Welcome, folks. Rambam. We're going to learn today the laws of Meiser Sheni, the second tithes. We spoke about the first tithe. Now we have the second tithe, all right? Which, well, we'll see. We'll see what that means. Okay. They contain 9 mitzvahs, 3 positive commandments, and 6 negative commandments. They are. Chapter 13. No, we're doing chapter 1. The third, I'm sorry. Here, give me the booklet for a second. Yeah, we're doing, my apologies. The third, okay. First. Page, page 178 here. Not every entity? Well, it's starting with introduction to Hilchos Meiser Sheni, to the laws of second tithes. So the commandments are to separate the second tithe, not to use the proceeds from the redemption for any other human needs aside for eating, drinking, or anointing oneself, not to partake of the second tithe in the state of ritual impurity, not to partake of the second tithe while in mourning, not to partake of the second tithe of grain while outside of Jerusalem, not partake of the second tithe of wine while outside of Jerusalem, not to partake of the second tithe of olive oil while outside of Jerusalem, for the entire crop of the fourth year to be consecrated. The requirement is that it must be eaten in Jerusalem by the owners according to the particulars that apply to the second tithe, to make declaration associated with the giving of tithes, and the explanation is in each chapter. So basically, the second tithe, just simply for the first, second year of the 7-year sabbatical year, first, second, fourth, and fifth years, as we'll see in a moment, you take it to Jerusalem, you have to be pure, and you eat it there like on a holiday. Okay, you eat it there on a holiday. Is that clear? That's a basic idea.
We're doing chapter 2:1. I'm lost.
We're doing today's third chapter, which is first chapter of laws of second tithes. Okay.
Right.
You take the book. Just take the book. Give him that book, yeah, and take. And you have right next to you the other book, David. Right next. No, that one. Same. Yeah, same page 178. Okay.
They contain 9 mitzvahs. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Halacha 1. After separating the first tithe every year, we separate the second tithe. Right. It's second in order. You shall certainly tithe your produce of your crops. In the third and the sixth years of the 7-year agricultural cycle, we separate the tithe for the poor instead of a second tithe, as we explained. So there's a 7-year cycle. If you can I'll leave it. Thank you. So in the third and the sixth year, this second tithe goes to the poor. The other years, it's for you personally to go to Jerusalem with it and to celebrate the holidays there. Okay. Number 2, the first of Tishrei is the beginning of the year with regard to reckoning of tithes for grain, legumes, and vegetables. Whenever the term Rosh Hashanah is used with regards to crops, the intent is the first of Tishrei. The 15th of Shvat is the beginning of the year with regard to reckoning of tithes for fruit trees, right? Tu B'Shvat is a holiday of the tree. What does it mean, the holiday of the tree? Because that's when it's the new year for the tree. So that's when you reckon, right, what year it is, if it's and therefore, are you using this first year, second year, third year, fourth, fifth, and sixth, or the seventh, which is a sabbatical year, right? So what does it imply? If the grain or legumes reach the phase of tithing before Rosh Hashanah of the third year, the second tithe should be separated from them, even though they are fully developed and were gathered in the third year. Why? Because in the second year, you're already obligated, right? So second year, you have to take it for yourself to bring to Jerusalem, even though you only took it in the third year, which the third year would be giving to the poor, right? But they were already in the phase of tithing. In other words, you had the obligation to tithe already before Rosh Hashanah, so therefore it's considered a second year crop vis-a-vis tithing.
Complete for 7 years, no way.
No. Wait, was that?
I don't know, just
What
keep
does that
going.
mean? What second year's that? Are you 2 years old for 2 years? Or are you 2 years old for 1 year?
So first one?
Yeah, let's not go there.
68 years.
No, you're just for 1 year, okay? And stop the nonsense. Yes, for a joke, it's okay, but nothing more than that.
That's it. Have my attention.
Okay. If, however, they did not reach the phase of tithing means that they're not obligated for tithing, right, until after Rosh Hashanah of the third year. Then the tithe for the poor should be separated from them. Then from these grains, they should not be used to be taken to Jerusalem, because they weren't obliged to take tithe from them until after Rosh Hashanah, and it was now began the third year, and therefore it should be used to give to the poor. Is that clear? Yeah? Okay. Similarly, so it's the same idea here as with a tree. But the difference with a tree is it's not based on Rosh Hashanah, it's based on the Rosh Hashanah for trees, which is Tu B'Shvat, right? If the tree reaches the phase of tithing before the 15th of Shvat, phase of tithing means it's well, whatever, we learned that those laws. Well, we won't go into the details right now. Right? If it was in the phase of tithing before the 15th of Shvat in the third year, it should be tithed according to the previous year. Right. And in the second tithe should be separated for it, even though it became fully developed and was gathered at the end of the third year. Right. In other words, it's like a third of it was grown. That made it already obligated in tithing, or at least potentially. So therefore, you use it since it's in the second year before Tu B'Shvat. Therefore, even though it fully developed and you only gathered it in the third year, that is considered second year, right, crop. And therefore, it is tithing for second year is for you to take to Jerusalem, not for the poor. Only third year and the sixth year are for the poor.
So is it always like the third year is the second year, and the fourth year is the third year?
I don't know what you mean by what you just said. First year, second year. Each year, we're defining what is this crop. How do you look at this crop? Does it belong for the laws of tithing to which year? That's the whole question here, right? Why is that an important question? Because the second year tithing would be something you have to take to Jerusalem to celebrate the holiday with those crops to take to Jerusalem, or right, to take to Jerusalem. If it's belongs to the third year of tithing, then it's for the poor you have to give it, and it's not for you to take to Jerusalem. That's why it's important to know the distinction. Okay. Similarly, if it reaches the phase of tithing before the 15th of Shvat in the fourth year, the tithe of the poor should be separated from it, right? Be separated from it, even though it became fully developed and was gathered at the end of the fourth year. If it reaches phase of tithing after the 15th of Shvat, it should be tithed like the produce of the coming year. Okay, same idea, but on the opposite end. Okay, even though a full carob tree begins to ripen before the 15th of Shvat, so now we're talking specifically a carob tree, right? They should be tied according to the coming year, since the obligation to tie them is of rabbinic origin. It's rabbinic because it's not a regular kind of fruit. We learned. It appears to me that this applies only with regard to the carobs that grow in Salmona, or other similar species that are not fit to be eaten by most people. Hence, the obligation to partake of them is rabbinic in origin. It appears to me that other carobs are similar to the rest of the fruit of the trees. In other words, it would be biblical, and therefore you do it in the manner that we stated previously. It's only these particular ones because they're not really, I guess they're not the normal kind of carobs that would be eaten. Number 4, vegetable should be timed according to the year when they are harvested. Because vegetables, what's the difference between vegetables and crops of like wheat and so on? Unlike other crops for which the water from the rain suffice, vegetables require irrigation. Which means there's much more involvement on your part of irrigation. That's how I understand it. And therefore, it should be going according to the time of harvest. It's not just based on what naturally happens. So what does imply? If there are harvests on the day of Rosh Hashanah of the 3rd year, the tithe of the poor should be separated from them, even though they reached the phase of tithing and indeed it fully matured in the 2nd year. If they were harvested in the 4th year, the second tithe should be separated from them. So, in other words, vegetables are based on when you harvest them, as opposed to when they are developed sufficiently. Right? That's a difference between. Okay, so therefore, if they were harvested in the 3rd year, on the day of Rosh Hashanah, like the Rosh Hashanah beginning the 3rd year, 2 years passed. Now, right, from the last sabbatical, now comes Rosh Hashanah, New Year, and not that you can harvest on that day, because it's Rosh Hashanah, you can't do that. But so
Figuratively.
So a non-Jew harvested, because he can harvest it on Rosh Hashanah, biblically, but not rabbinically. It's just bringing out the point that even though it's the very beginning of the year and it was fully ripe, right, in the previous year, but since you didn't harvest it until the beginning of the 3rd year, then it belongs to the poor, not to you, to bring to Jerusalem. That's the point over here. Okay. Similarly, among fruit trees, only the esrog is like vegetables, meaning the laws governing whether for the tithes of sabbatical year is dependent on when it is harvested, right? So unique about an esrog. When it's harvested, that's what year it belongs to. What is implied? If it is harvested in the 3rd year after the 15th of Shvat, the tithe of the poor should be separated from it, even though its growth was complete in the 2nd year. Right? It was fully grown in the 2nd year. But on the 15th, that's when you harvested of Shvat, on Tu B'Shvat. So then it belongs to the 3rd year and it belongs to the poor. If it was harvested on the 4th year, on the 15th of Shvat, the second tithe should be separated. So the 4th year, right? Now there's full 3 years, and now the 4th year starts Shvat, Tu B'Shvat. On that day, you harvested, so it belongs to the 4th year, not the 3rd year, because even though it was fully grown in the 3rd year, you don't give it to the poor, it belongs to you for Meiser Sheni. Yeah, is that clear? Yeah. Although, number 6, the laws governing an esrog depend on when it was reaped. When an esrog that grew in the 6th year entered the 7th year, tithes must be separated from it. This applies even though it was only an olive size at the beginning of the sabbatical year and became the size of a loaf of bread during the year. So now that's different because now we're talking about sabbatical year. So it grew fully in the 6th year, which belongs to the poor, right? But you only reaped it on the 7th year, which is sabbatical year, which doesn't belong to anybody. So, and sabbatical year, you don't give tithes. Nonetheless, in this instance, for the esrog, you do give the tithe. No, nothing at all. Number 7. When we apply both the stringencies that apply to trees and those that apply to vegetables to keeper berries. Thus, if they grew from the 2nd year and then they enter into the 3rd year of harvest before the 15th of Shvat, first tithe should be separated. After another tithe should be separated because it's the 2nd year. After he should then be redeemed and be given to the poor. Proceeds of redemption should be used to purchase food that's eaten according to the law of the 2nd tithe. That's to separate both the 2nd tithe and the tithe for the poor. Ooh, this is interesting. Thank you.
Rambam goes according to the biblical and the Torah?
Yeah. And both stringencies. Okay, so we're going to stop here. Okay. Sorry, folks.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
How about
Have a good day.